Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday, and welcome in to this edition of CanesInSight Daily. I am your host, Peter Ariz. As you guys saw yesterday, the last couple of days, really, D-Money is overseas. He's in Greece for a family wedding, so I've been holding it down this week, and today I'll be joined by the legendary Steve Kim as he joins us every Thursday here on the CanesInSight Daily podcast. As always, this show brought to you by the law offices of Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733 to take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. So without much further ado here, I bring in Steve Kim with his Green Tree All-American shirt right there, representing the CanesInSight merch. Steve, how are we feeling this morning, man? Bye week, we can take a little bit of a breather somewhat.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a third of the way through, guys. This season goes by so fast. You look forward to it for about, 8.5, almost 9 months. I can't believe D-Money as a family member who thought it was okay to plan a fall wedding. Now, I'll give whoever this family member is a little bit of credit. I don't know if you meant to do it on purpose, but at least it's during a bye week. Could you imagine what Danny would be going through right now in Greece if this was the weekend of October 4th?
You know, I really, that's what I was going to say. The test would have been, we have to get the story there. Was this did he consult with him that much so that he did it on a bye week, or did he just get super lucky? Because then the family ties would have really been tested there. But my favorite part about it, Steve, is before he leaves, the day before he leaves, he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to Greece tomorrow." like it just popped up, like this trip popped up out of nowhere.
And is this family from the old country? Do they not respect American norms? I'll tell you a funny story before we get into it. This is in 2008. One of my very best friends, Hugo, who actually has gone to a lot of Miami games with me. I graduated.
I met Hugo.
Yes, you have. Absolutely. In Chicago for the Notre Dame game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he's my road dog. He's my guy. And so we graduated together, Montebello High School, Harvard of East LA, way back when. So one day I'm at the office. It's on a Sunday night. I had just gotten done working out, and I get a phone call from Hugo. Now, he's a firefighter, so he's busy. There's days and weeks we don't go by without talking or texting because he's doing unimportant things like putting out fires and saving lives, right? So he calls me on an early Sunday night around 7:38, and I go, "Hey, Hugo." So he goes, "Hey, Steve, what's going on?" He goes, "Hey, Steve, we want to let you know, you know that girl that you met that I took to the Manny Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez fight? Yeah, Sarah, she's nice. She's nice. Yeah, well, we're getting married." And I go, "Married?" And he gives me the date, and he said, "Yeah, we're getting married." And I think it was October 25th, Steve. So I'm right in front of a computer, and I said, "October?" So I get on the mouse. Remember the thing's called the mouse? To go to the Miami Hurricane website to look at the Miami schedule. Before I can even press the mouse, he goes, "Oh, Steve, we looked it up. You guys were playing Wake Forest. You can miss that one, right?" And I said, "Hold on, Hugs. Jim Grove has led them to an ACC title here. Or at least they won their division. I'm not sure about this." He goes, "Come on, Steve. The wedding's going to be later at night." It turned out we played Wake Forest in the 9 a.m. window Pacific time, and I've told them, "You got away with one there. You got away with." So it happens. It happens, Petey. It happens.
It happens. It happens. It just, listen, my sister got married on, I missed Miami Clemson in 23, the double overtime win.
Ooh,
my sister got married that night, and I had to eat that one. I can't miss that one. But
I mean, if it was 2015, she would have done you a favor.
Yeah.
But I get it. Petey, before we get started, we got to take care of business with our fine sponsors. I want to thank Jensen Sunset Corners for sponsoring this segment every Thursday. And guys, on game days, before you head out to Hard Rock Stadium, make sure your tailgate is loaded up with everything you need. Go to Jensen Sunset Corners. They have you covered with all the best wine, spirits, and everything else in between. Now, here's the thing. If you come in rocking your University of Miami gear, 10% off all non-sale items. Hey, folks, rep the U. They are proud supporters of the Miami Hurricanes. That address, 8701 72nd Street, Miami, Florida. Once again, that's Jensen's Sunset Corners.
Best in the business, man. Shout out to the Cruz family and everyone over there at Sunset Corners at Jensen's. 10% off, man. That's not a bad deal just to be wearing the orange and green. I know we always talk about it, Steve. I'm wearing orange and green pretty much every other day, anyways. So
and they don't even care. It could be Nike stuff. It could be the Adidas stuff. If you're really old like me, it could be the pro player stuff. It can even be starter. Again, just rep the U, 10% off. Jensen's Sunset Corners. And Petey, funny story. So what we do, our crew, and you know who I hang with at the game, we always leave about an hour after the game. We let the traffic clear out. We have some victory celebrations going on at the post-game tailgate. And we ended up listening to you on the way home. It wasn't live. You had just gone off there. And I thought you made a great analogy about the Florida game and the way we play, like the boa constrictor.
Thank you. Everyone thinks I was just a crazy person, which I tend to be after the games, but I'm very serious in when I make the comparison. So I'm glad that you could take you could agree with it a little bit there.
And it did remind me, and I'm not a big MMA guy. I cover boxing for a living, but some of the UFC fights that I've watched, those guys that do jujitsu, when they get a guy down, they sprawl and they have I don't want to say headlock, but they have a hold and they just stand there. Now, it's not the most exciting, but it's incredibly effective. And they just neutralize and take the air out of an opponent. That's kind of what we did. And I'm not going to lie to you, Peter. It was frustrating. I don't know about you. When Cormani McLean picked that pass off at 13-7, you could just feel it in the stadium. There was this nervous air of like, oh God, are we going to blow this game here? Because we had absolutely dominated Florida throughout much of that contest.
Yeah, I think we share some of the same sentiments there. I like the MMA analogy. There was a fight a few years ago too. It was like it was our boy Masvidal, Miami boy, and Kamaru Usman, and Usman just kept stomping on his feet. That's how he wore him down, and that. As we're, a lot of the comments that we've gotten this week, and Hot Dog 38 says here, like he says, what's the deal with not pushing the ball downfield? Are we playing too conservative? Are we limited on deep passing? Like that's with this offense early on. I think the lack of explosives is the story for me. If you want to look at a negative outside of what we know is that you can control the line of scrimmage completely. This last weekend, I think there was a lot of factors to that, Steve, and we've talked about it a lot this week. But the rain was pretty heavy. Beck, we'll monitor it. I'm not overly concerned, but it didn't look like the same player. There were these factors we're talking about here like that. Florida secondary is about as athletic and physically gifted as you're going to see this year. But Miami, quite frankly, and this has been the issue that we've talked about, CJ Daniels has been awesome. Had that drop the other night, but with some of these other catches, we forgive there. We just don't want to see it again, right? So that Malachi Toney, we know what he is at this point, as reliable as it gets for a freshman. Keelan Marion has been really encouraged by what I've seen there. He can be that deep threat, but you're lacking a game breaker right now still. And I think there's multiple things that go into that, but your thoughts on that kind of now 4 games through here. And we saw it highlighted against Florida.
Well, where have you gone, Travis Benjamin or Tommy Streeter? We do need a guy that could take the top off the defense. Every time he lines up wide, the defense backs up. Now, to Hot Dog's point, on the CanesInSight message boards, I don't know if you know this, folks, but I am Canine Kane. I linked a video from a guy that I've gotten to know quite well, Keith Simons. He's a former football coach, really knows the X's and O's, understands the game from a 360-degree perspective. He has a YouTube channel called QB Unfiltered, breaks down quarterback and offensive play, and he is a Miami fan. He's a guy that flat out said last year, as Miami got Cam Ward, he said, based on what I've seen, that's the best quarterback by far in college football. So he knows his stuff, and he did a whole video begging Shannon Dawson and Mario to start stretching the field and take the handcuffs on. But to what you said, Peter, I call this game The Milli Vanilli game. Blame it on the rain. There's no doubt about it. Those factors, along with Florida's back seven being really athletic, I think they're among the better defenses that the University of Miami will play up until the playoffs. So all of those things, and Carson Beck, even his completions on Saturday, as I like to say, he tackled some of his receivers because the ball placement really wasn't all that good. But so there are certain games in terms of the flow and the tempo, you have to either go to the whip or you coax back and you just kind of say, look, our defense can actually win this game as long as we don't turn the ball over. And I think that was the thinking. But Peter, the game was 13-0 at the half. Felt like it should have been 31-0. Now, that's good and bad because we are controlling the game, but two bad plays, and all of a sudden you can lose it real quickly. And this is what I found interesting and unfortunate. If Marty Marr, if he does not get whistled down on that 4th and 1 and it's 20-0, that game literally becomes 48-0 because now at this point, Heatherman's defense can play downhill. There's no threat of the run game. You can be one-dimensional offensively, and with Bain and Messidor and Lightfoot screaming downhill, that changed the whole course of the game. I've looked at that play 50 different times, Peter. There was no justification for that whistle to be blown.
Yeah, and Mario made it very clear that they missed it, and they told him that he missed it, and you didn't hear him mince words. I'm not sure if you saw the interview with him in the locker room with Don Bailey after, and yeah. Mario, he was like, "Yeah, it would have been nice to have. How about 20-0? That would have been nice." That's Peter, exactly what he said. So
the section that I'm in, it's right next to the student section, right? Everyone's celebrating. I mean, we're like, okay, now the blowout sound. We're like, pour it on them, right? And the next thing you know, we see the officials walking the ball back past the 35 to the 40. I said, wow, we must have been taunting them because we just went 91 Cotton Bowl. This is going to be one of the longest PATs I've ever seen. And next thing you know, I go, what happened? Like, I was absolutely flabbergasted by that call.
Green Tree All-American says, what a shirt.
By the way, that's a Kimism.
It is. It is, one of many out there. I'm looking for
at CanesInSight.com, by the way. They have all sizes. Yep. Shipping's really good. Do good job on that, Peter.
So, Steve, I'm looking at this comment here from Stavo, and it just, to me, I want to kind of put a wrap on the first 4 games. We can look more at Florida, and then we can look ahead at Florida State as well. But the comment says, who has Miami beat that was good? And quite frankly, my thing is this. It feels like this question has come up every week now. Hey, how good is Notre Dame? Because they lost their first game. You play Bethune-Cookman. You can, from the outside looking in, say, hey, they didn't play anyone. Then you play USF and say, well, now is going to be a real test. They just beat Florida. You beat them the way you did. You play Florida, and the narrative going in there was they're wounded, and it was true. I think you can look at it that way, especially the way the offense has sputtered. Lagway has sputtered. So the questions come up every game, but Miami's passed the test. All you can ask them to do is win those games.
Peter, let's look at Notre Dame. They are 1 4th down stop at home or a missed PAT that was botched from being 2-1 and still being in the top 15. You look at their schedule. Now, they have a tricky one against Arkansas because Sam Pittman's fighting for his life. And they can throw the ball with Taylor Green. I think that game's at Little Rock. They win that one. I'll make a prediction right now. Notre Dame will still be a 9-10 win team. They will win the large majority of the remaining games. I think SC may be the one they probably drop because I like the Trojans this year. Bethune-Cookman is who they are. It's basically a glorified scrimmage. USF will still win 8 to 9 games, I believe, at that level of football in that league. So that's a solid win, and especially the way we blew them out. How you win matters, guys. It really does. It's like in boxing. When you develop a young fighter, you don't want a bunch of first-round knockouts. You also, on the other hand, do not want a bunch of 10-round wars where you get hit a lot. There's that fine balance of getting quality developmental rounds. That's what I think Miami's gotten so far. And you look at Florida to wrap it up. They're going to struggle because offensively they are broken and they are a shell of what they want to be. But keep this in mind about the defense the first month. They haven't quit. And if you take away the pick six against LSU, they haven't given up really more than 20 offensive points in the first 58 minutes of any game till Miami, right? It was 19-7, and then we poured it on late touchdown with about, 2.5 minutes to go. So basically, they held LSU to 13 offensive points in Death Valley. They shut out Long Island Ice-T. I get it. Against USF, they held them to 16. It's pretty good defense.
Comment here. Here it is from Hot Dog again. He said something else. How the heck are we ranked like 50s in the rush offense? I mean, I have to look at the metrics as D Money says. The yards per attempt is really what you want to look at there. But the teams they've played, taking Bethune out of the equation, have been pretty strong up front. I think you'll be in the top 15-20 range once you get into the meat ACC schedule. I think you really wear some of those teams down.
And Peter, a lot of those rankings, the teams are really bunched up.
Yeah.
Right. So if you get 10 more yards a game, you go from the 50s to the 30s. And if you get 25 yards more, you're probably in the top 20. If they make the correct call on the Marty Brown run, that's a 50-yard run. That probably changes the dynamics. But to his point,
they're 57. So I'm looking at CFB stats, and I think this is the site that D Money uses, that it takes the Bethunes out of the equation.
Okay.
So yeah, that's they're averaging 4.75.
I'm waiting to see the return of Ground Jordan Lyle, because the one thing that we need moving forward offensively, you talked about the outside threat that could take the top off the defense. We need a guy that when you get the ball in his hands, they can burst 80 yards. And that is more or less Jordan Lyle's game. And I said to you guys a few weeks ago, and I think I've written this, I think Jordan Lyle is much more effective right now in that James Jackson 1997-98 role, where he cleans up after defenses get worn down a little bit by more physical backs, and his burst and his speed will hit home runs. Travis Homer was really good at that before Mark Walton's injury in 2017. But this bye week, I believe, comes at a perfect time. We're relatively healthy, and now we get 2 full weeks to prepare for Tallahassee.
Yeah, and we'll get into that game in a bit here. Just wrapping up Florida, Steve, anything else there that stood out to you? I know you were at the game, and then kind of on rewatch there. Anything really stick out?
Yeah, a couple things. Looking at that offensive drought where we scored 13 points and we seem to be stuck on 13. I remember being at the 2013 game, Peter. I think were you in high school in 2013?
No. I was in school. Okay. I was at UM.
That was a noon start game. And it ended up being, I guess, one of Al Golden's greatest victories. I remember we hit 2 early touchdowns to Philip Dorsett on the post and then Herb Waters on the corner route. And we're thinking, oh, great, we're going to score a lot here. We literally didn't get a first down for about 2 hours, it felt like. Yeah. I mean, that Florida defense was good. They had a lot of NFL guys. And
a lot of NFL guys.
And I remember Clive Walford got a pass into the flat, broke a tackle for like 15 yards. We had our first down in forever. And I remember the crowd erupting. Because I remember we had to win that game because of 5 turnovers. The defense kept bending and breaking. When we made it 19-7 this past weekend, I kind of had that same feel, like you could relax, you can exhale, we're going to be okay. But again, defense travels. I think one of the great stories of the first month is that the defense coming in, Peter, to the 2025 season was a question mark. Come to the end of September, it's an exclamation point. The other thing that I thought was really good in terms of a development moving forward, I think me and Danny Money, I think we ought to pat ourselves on the back. We can breathe a sigh of relief. Elijah Lofton still knows how to play football. We're good. We've been driving the bandwagon. People have been making some shots, but Elijah No H. Lofton has entered the room in 2025.
Yeah, love to see that role for him. And you get him 5. I mean, he got four catches the other day, but you get him 5 to 7 touches a game, man. And I think he can critical situations, right? The
Well,
third
Peter,
downs. Go ahead.
I think all of his catches basically were 4 first downs or put
Mhm.
us in 3rd and short. Those are
Yeah.
key grabs.
Yeah, that's where I want to see him be used, man. That's where he is. That for the defense, just something extra to worry about. Because if you know that you don't have those explosive playmakers, and I think that's why you saw them incorporate, or you've seen them use it a few times now, like that power package
Yeah.
near the goal line, right? Like and that's what this bye week is going to be about. Is like how can you continue to be creative within what you have, the playmakers you have? How can you start to incorporate, assuming he's doing everything he needs to do, a JoJo trader? Because as we heard Mario say the other day, he flat out said he needs to practice harder, which means he needs to play better to earn those reps. It's more than an injury. So how can you get guys like that in the mix? A Ray, right, has when he's been in, he hasn't done anything that you'd say, hey, he shouldn't be out there. So I think you saw the rotation was very tight the other day. I keep referencing when you get into ACC play, I'm expecting that rotation to be closer to what you saw against USF in a lot of these ACC games. I'm not saying you're going to blow all these teams out, but I think there's going to be opportunities to utilize the depth of the roster, Stephen. And that's what I'm interested to see here moving forward.
And Peter, I don't want to call it luck. I mean, it is South Florida, but every single game Miami has had this season has had rain. In fact, it's funny, for Notre Dame and Florida, I came in for both games. The days that I get there, the weather is perfect. Low to mid 80s, nice humidity, but it's pleasant. So then you get the game day, it's raining. And the days that I leave right after, the night or two, the mornings or two after,
Beautiful.
got a cloud in the sky. So everyone talked about the Miami schedule, how a lot of early home games. We do not leave the state of Texas till, I believe, November 1st. We're going to be in Dallas. I just booked my flight for that game. You know, people made it sound like it's such an advantage. It can be, but again, in the last 15 years or so, Peter, and this never happened when I was growing up, and I'm older than you, there never used to be things as a weather delay, by the way. Honestly, there was never a lightning delay that I can remember. I guess the attitude back then is, hey, you guys have helmets, you'll be okay. Just get out there and play. But it is different now. And so we had the hour 42 delay against USF. It rained right when the game started against Florida. And that's one thing that I'd push back on with the QB Unfiltered video, is that the weather absolutely played a factor in the way Shannon Dawson handled that game.
I do have a bit of a tidbit that I don't know maybe Mario mentioned this at some point, but I heard that one of the reasons they were actually kind of well equipped to handle it in the USF game there was the delay was, they did that scrimmage
They practiced
maybe the Sunday or 2 Sundays before at Hard Rock.
Yeah.
There was actually like a weather delay when they did the scrimmage. So they actually went through it. Maybe he did mention it. So this may not be anything, but I think that from talking to a couple people on the team, they were like, they actually had this happen already to them. So it wasn't the first time they dealt with it. And now they were just so used to it that I don't think it was something that, is really at the top of their mind.
Petey, before the software got constructed, one thing we used to hear about all the time is, well, Miami began practice and 17 minutes in, the lightning delay, and then you'd lose that whole day of practice.
And they would literally go to, because I was working at the gym on the rec center on campus, the wellness center. They would literally go upstairs, and if you guys have been on campus, you guys know what I'm talking about, to the basketball courts, indoor basketball courts, 3 full court basketball courts. They would lift all the paneling up, and they'd practice in the indoor basketball with sneakers on. You can't get work. I mean, guys would be walking in there with shells. It was like the entire football team walking through. And this was, again, Steve, this is not that long ago.
Yeah.
This is modern era of college football.
Well, Petey, we were not a serious football program. We were a program that had great tradition, great alumni. I'll never forget, I forgot which weekend you picked me up. It might have been maybe Georgia Tech 2017, or maybe it was another one around that era. You were showing me around. I remember we went to various places, and the software was just being built. The shovels had just hit the soil. And I remember we were talking. I mean, Miami did not have practice field lights till around 2010. And I said, wait a minute. I remember thinking, wait a minute. You're telling me all throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, we never had practice field lights, or at least permanent ones. Jeez.
Yeah, they would have to do stuff on the intramural field also, which they would run the high school camps out there, which was not good. But Steve, let's look at FSU a little bit here, because obviously we get the bye week, but Mario was flat out open with saying that they're already looking at FSU. Like they have to take the time in terms of letting some guys rest, and he mentioned hanging out with the guys and kind of decompressing somewhat, but at the same time, game planning wise, they're already on to Florida State. Completely new team, completely new roster from last year, obviously, and the system is different with Malzahn there. It's been an awesome fit for them with Castellanos and him. But your early thoughts looking at this one, as we talk about, we don't know what Miami is. I don't know that we have any clue what Florida State is necessarily either. If you're going to go off of
trap game, Petey, tomorrow night, Friday, prime time, they play Virginia, and I am impressed by Tony Elliott's offense. He's finally gotten that thing right with Chandler Morris running much more of an air raid thing, and they have a good set of receivers, including Cam Ross. And the other guy whose name escapes me, and they have a good physical back that has some wheels, Jamari Taylor. You go back to the North Carolina State game, they could easily be undefeated. They were driving to take the lead late, and Chandler Morris probably threw the worst pass of his life, but he's good. That's a Friday night. It's at UVA. They're bringing back their 1995 throwback uniforms. And Petey, you may have been a kid back then, probably. I don't even know if you remember this.
Well, I was born in '94, so
yeah. So for the first year and a half of your life, Florida State did not lose an ACC game till about 3 years into their run, and it was a Thursday night game with the Rondé Barber, Tiki Barber, and I think Mike Groh was the quarterback. And it was like this historic thing. They're pulling out all the stops. Here's my view on that game. It is a bit of a trap game, but when I looked at Virginia, they're really slow on the back end of their defense. Stanford actually got behind them a few times. I think Florida State has too many offensive weapons, too much speed. I can envision like a 45-31 game. And we're going to see, though, because Virginia's pretty solid. Looks like they're going to go bowling. I think that'll be more of a true indicator of what they are, more than the last, let's say, 2-3 games post-Alabama.
Juan Manuel's also remembering the same game as you. He says 1995 there. So
yeah, Warwick Dunn got caught, literally tackled. They ran like a wildcat or a straight shotgun thing where he caught it. Petey, he was this close from the goal line. It was literally a game of half inches, that contest.
Yeah, and I think the speed is definitely going to be what we're interested to see how Miami defends it, because talking to a lot of people about this offense, it's kind of described as like a wing tee out of the shotgun. It's kind of like a Georgia Tech sort of deal there, where it's a very specific offense that you need to prepare for. But they're bringing you the speed on the outside that, quite frankly, is probably a little bit better than Miami's on the outside.
Danzy.
Not a little bit, a lot better.
Makai Danzy.
Not saying they're better players.
He's actually like a world-class sprinter for his age group. I didn't realize that. And I remember in the Alabama game, they ran a reverse, and I was like, wow. And Deuce Robinson, I've watched a lot of him at USC. He's a big-body target. The one thing that I was consistent in saying in the offseason, Castellanos just did not fit what Bill O'Brien wants in a quarterback. Okay? But with Gus Malzahn, pocket Kyler Murray, I think, fits to a T. He's a twitchy athlete. But again, many of their statistics the last 3 weeks, you almost have to throw them out the window. And this is a factor in several games this week. If I'm not mistaken, this is Florida State's first road game. those things are always a little bit of a test. You look at Ohio State, impressive roster for Julian Sayin. He's going up to Washington in his first road start. Dante Moore, first road start as the Oregon quarterback. These things do matter. But I look at Florida State, and I knew Tony White is a very respected defensive coordinator. He might be the coach at UCLA in about 4 to 5 months here.
He says he hasn't had any contact with them. But
yeah, and Nick Saban still says he's not going to leave the Dolphins. We know the way this goes, okay? Yeah. So I look at Florida State. Last year, 2-10 was an absolute abomination. The feeling was they were going to be a little bit better. The question is just how much better are they? I think Virginia's going to be a real indicator.
Yeah, another comment here from M. Milan saying this is a trap game for them, which is what you said. You know, Steve, there's been a lot of narrative around trap games this year. There was a USF was a trap game for Miami. Is it still a trap game if everyone's calling it a trap game? I'm starting to believe.
Yeah, but Peter, once Florida lost to USF, I said, geez, here's the thing. Now USF's not a trap game. They've gotten our attention. But the thing that I was afraid of, because I knew UF still has more talent physically, right? I said, I did not want them coming off a loss. One of the toughest things coaches talk about all the time is they would much rather face teams coming off a victory than a loss, for a very simple reason. It's much easier to motivate the troops.
Bagging Up says, I wanted Dante Moore on this roster badly, which kind of leads me into, you know, we can talk a little bit around the country here, because D-Money said the other day that he actually thought this was going to be Dante Moore's coming out party where he kind of announces himself this week for Oregon. So, you know, what are you thinking? What did you see last week nationally? And what are you thinking this week?
Well, speaking of Dante Moore, I got to see him up close. He spent his true freshman year at UCLA. And I remember he showed a lot of flashes, but a lot of his game was really built around the RPO. And once Utah did the pick six early in that game, it just fell apart. And at that point, I think mentally, he was probably out of UCLA, much like Chip Kelly was, but he has developed. And I wonder, going into that game, even if it's at Happy Valley and they're doing the whiteout, right? Does Oregon actually have the advantage at quarterback, even though they have a fifth-year senior in Drew Aller? I think that's a referendum, not on just Franklin, but also Aller. They've been married at the hip the last few years. They have not, you know, the track record against the top 5 teams. I get the sense Oregon's as good as anybody in the country. But again, it is Moore's first road game as the Oregon quarterback. That's the only thing that holds me back from saying I think Oregon wins this game. Not handily, but I do think that they will show over time that I think they're going to actually win the game, though, still.
It's funny you bring up the quarterback battle there, so to speak, between him and Aller. I need Drew Aller's PR. I really do, Steve. Because it's not that I'm not a fan. I think he's a good college quarterback, but the way he's been consistently, like, from the media, locked in as a first round pick type, I just don't see it with him. I don't know what you think there.
Drew Aller was one of those 5-star top 5 players, right? I'm absolutely convinced that once you're labeled that and you're okay, people cling to that, because if you read the book on Aller, very good at the in cuts, certain throws where he could drive. He's okay.
I'm sorry. I just found the latest headline on him that Pete Thamel tweeted out. And I'm gonna bring it up here while you talk. But look at this PR work, man. This was the story the week of this game. No shirt is safe around him now. Drew Aller has worked hard to position himself to be the first Penn State first-round quarterback since 1995. In his final ride in State College, can he and his team find the difference on the treacherous terrain from great to elite?
All right, here's a trivia question, Pete. Do you know who that quarterback was in 1995 from Penn State? Had a long NFL career. Actually started in a Super Bowl.
Started in a Super Bowl. I should know that one then.
Yes.
I should
You were
definitely
still
know that
very
one.
young for that Super Bowl, though.
Well, if he was young in the Super Bowl, then I might not. Then I'm not going to know that one then, because I really didn't start watching the NFL until like 2002.
So you
Yeah,
missed it by a year or two. Kerry Collins.
Kerry Collins, Giants. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember him.
Kerry Collins in
Yeah.
1994. That
He
Penn
played a
State.
lot. He played a long time.
Yes, he did. And that 94 Penn State team, good offense as I've ever seen. I mean, yeah, you had Kajana Carter. You had Kyle Brady. You had a couple offensive linemen like Hardings and Andre Johnson, not the receiver. You had Bobby Ingram, Freddie. It was just an absolute machine of an offense that they ran. And I'll say one thing. Let me go all famous political quote. I know Kerry Collins. Drew Aller, you are no Kerry Collins. Where Drew Aller struggles is that he has decent athleticism, not great. But what really kills him in the big games, Peter, in my opinion, he struggles at the anticipatory throws. And I know everyone blamed the wide receiver unit, right? Some of those other wide receivers this year are actually having very good seasons at other programs. And this offseason, they brought in Trevor Pena, Devontae Ross, Kyron Hudson from USC. You look at their yards per catches early on, and they haven't exactly played Murderer's Row. I think there's a common denominator here. It's Aller.
Yeah, and just staying in the Big Ten there. Obviously, you had the Indiana-Illinois matchup last week, Steve. Indiana looks good. I mean, just looking at their roster, they have at Oregon and at Penn State, but they don't strike me as the sort of. They have at Iowa this week. They have Michigan State at home, UCLA at home, at Maryland. At Maryland could be interesting. They have a nice little offense there, but Indiana doesn't strike me as a team that's going to lose a game that they shouldn't lose, so to speak. If they can take one of those Oregon or Penn State games, man, they're in position again.
Hey, Signetti, Google him again. The guy's a savage, and Fernando Mendoza. I'm just telling you, if he ends up a top 5 pick, D Money better be invited to the green room. I don't know if he knows the family. I don't know, but he better be invited to that green room. And when they do that thing with the picture with the jersey with the family up there with the good, Danny better come up on stage. Danny called this before anybody.
He was riding the train. I was right there next to him, and we were fighting in the comments with people telling us it was because we're Cuban and he's a Miami guy, but no, the guy, I think you said it last week, a few years ago, he had a duel with Caleb Williams.
They made a big comeback. They were playing at Cal Berkeley, and that's when USC was still scoring upper 40s. They took him into overtime, and I remember the announcer saying, "Well, he's from Columbus High in Miami." I was like, "Really?" And I was like, And he showed a lot. And when I look at Indiana, they never take their foot off the gas pedal. They are trying to embarrass you. And they still have Surratt back. They have Omar Cooper. They have a really good running back crew. And they played a very fast clip. Now, Iowa traditionally plays very good defense. Gronowski actually came on a little bit against Rutgers. I wonder, is there going to be that emotional letdown? Keep this in mind. That game's at Iowa City. Road games are a little bit different, Peter.
Yeah. No, definitely. That one's going to be a test for them. Let me tell you, man, there's some matchups this weekend that are really, really interesting. Obviously, you have talk about Florida State, Virginia. We talked about that one already. USC, Illinois. That one is, I know USC is always a program of interest for you out there. So that's a nice ranked matchup. Notre Dame, Arkansas. Notre Dame, Peter, Arkansas is a nice one.
That's going to be a high scoring battle. The Chris Ash, it's amazing. Did we ever think we'd be saying in 2025, boy, this program really misses Al Golden? Notre Dame does. That defense has not looked good throughout the whole year. And I thought what was underrated was Notre Dame lost some real big fellas up there in the front seven from the team that played for the national title. And they've had some issues. Chris Ash is already feeling some heat. And Talon Green is a quarterback prospect that I like for the next level. I think he'll have a shot to play in the National Football League. And again, that game's on the road. But if Notre Dame wins it, I expect him to knock off a lot of wins here coming into the fall. Petey, I like USC. I have got to give Lincoln Riley some credit. He is evolving his program in a sense that bigger bodies, more physical on defense, and they're back to running the ball. They're running back duo of Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders. Very solid 1-2 punch. I'm not saying they're Reggie Bush and Lendell White, but they can tote the rock. And Jaden Maeva, more athleticism than Miller Moss, which expands that offense overall. SC gets through this, right? I think they make the playoffs.
Interesting. Man, there's a lot of contenders there from the Big Ten for the playoffs. And let me tell you, it's hard to say that there's a sneaky one for the number one team in the country, but Washington might be better than people think. They've I'm a believer in Jed Fish. They've stockpiled some talent over there.
Petey, one of the saddest days of my hurricane life. We had so much sorrow. It was January of 2013. I'm at a friend's place. I'm covering the Gennady Golovkin fight. It was against Gabe Rosado. So we're thinking, okay, 2012, it is what it is. Stephen Morris had some promising moments. The Saturday night or the Saturday morning of that fight, I wake up to the news and it goes, Jed Fish is leaving for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, and I love James Coley. I got to know Coach Coley. Nothing against him. I thought he did a good job. But it really affected and impacted Stephen Morris negatively because now you have to learn a new system, right? You can run the similar concepts, but things change when you go through a new coordinator. Jed Fish is one of the brightest offensive minds. And look, Arizona has not been the same program. I know they're undefeated and they have a big game this week. Ask Noel Fafita if he feels the loss of Jed Fish. And Jed Fish has a quarterback, a horse he can ride in Damon Williams, and one of the best running backs in the country in Jonah Coleman. Now, let me go back to a point that I made. I still remember in early 2000, a lot of Miami fans thought, oh, we're going to beat Washington. We're much better. Here was the issue. That was Ken Dorsey's first road game. Ken Dorsey, for about 3 quarters, was really affected by the whole atmosphere. Julian Sayin has had the safe confines of the horseshoe. This game, to me, is the one I'm actually looking most forward to, believe it or not, Petey, this weekend.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought because there's a lot of big time rank. You have LSU Ole Miss. That's gonna be a nice matchup there. Auburn A&M should be a really good one. We talked about Oregon, Penn State, Alabama. Dude, this is a loaded slate. And with all that being said, some of these games with unranked teams, like we said, Notre Dame, Arkansas, Notre Dame ranked, but Arkansas not ranked right now, and then that Washington one are very intriguing. I think I'm not going to say we are going to learn a lot this weekend because it's still like some of these teams are undefeated, and I don't know that this is going to define where their season goes. But yeah, like if LSU goes on the road and beats Ole Miss, does that mean that does that help Miami's win against Florida? I don't know how this. I mean, that's like a leap, but.
Look, my view is this. Let's just win the ACC. Let's just get to Charlotte. All this talk of Miami being the best team in the country, it's amazing this narrative, how it's flipped in about 5-6 weeks, Petey. Because 5-6 weeks ago, it was Mario Cristobal and Miami are going to fall apart without Cam Ward. We're not even in October, and now we're the best team in the country. I find it interesting. But another game that I'm looking out for, because I think this team is really good, and I said it, that they were my ACC dark horse. Georgia Tech, I believe, plays at Wake Forest. Can they just systematically and business fashion, just get out there and just roll them over? Georgia Tech, Petey, look at that schedule. Coming into that Georgia game, which I think is happening at the Georgia Dome, which I absolutely hate, they could be undefeated.
Yeah, I'm looking at NC State. That might not be an easy one. At Duke could be a little bit tricky. Yeah. They should win, but those, and at Syracuse. So listen, man, everyone with these ACC teams, they try to look at the schedule and say, oh, they got an easy schedule. there's a lot. The ACC does this every year, Steve.
Yeah,
You know
they
this.
do.
It really does. We need to be in week 8 or 9 for me to start to get a real picture of what's going on there. So, yeah, that's to me, that's my thought. I think if we look at the games around the country this week, though, where I think from a Canes fans perspective, you'd be very interested to see is Bama and Georgia, just because you saw them against Florida State, Alabama. And if Bama can match Georgia, their physicality at least, then you can kind of say, man, were they just asleep at the wheel against Florida State? If they do it, if they have a dud of a performance again against Georgia, then you might say, well, this is probably what they were. And does that diminish what Florida State did? I'm not saying you look at it as if you're the Canes and say, well, that means Florida State's not very good. But I'm just, for me, that'll be something that I'll be watching.
Yeah, a couple things. Part of me wants Alabama to win this game because Georgia is now creeping up on the 58-game home winning streak. Every time a team gets to around 30, I get a little nervous. That 58 is near and dear to our hearts. That is our record. So any team that plays at Georgia, that's my second favorite team for the time being. Okay, the one thing about Bama, keep in mind for the Florida State game, they got outplayed. But this is also a fact. They didn't have Keenan, probably their best interior lineman. He was out for that game. Jam Miller, I believe, makes his debut. They haven't run the ball this well. And this much is clear, though. Ty Simpson has played very well. I think he has steadied himself. There's no quarterback controversy out there. They still have a good set of receivers. The Georgia defense, especially their back end, it was shown against Tennessee. This ain't the 2021 or 22 unit either. They're pretty vulnerable.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed with that. I mean, that's what we've been saying, right? It's not, you don't have the same depth on some of these teams because you just can't roll them out like that. I think that's for Miami. That's what they want to continue to do is gain the trust from some of these young guys and make sure you stay fresh throughout the year because it's a long season.
It is. And that's where with Miami, I'm just kind of looking big picture. I really hope we do play some blowouts because if you're going to play national championship level football, that means you're going to play 16 to 17 games. That means you need all hands on deck and you have to develop depth. Now, this has been talked about a lot. After Louisville, we're playing 7 straight games, right, down the back stretch. Not a bye. I don't know what the ACC was thinking, but it is what it is. You can't change it now. I would hope in certain games, and you could pick out which ones, we get on top early, put up half 100 as soon as you can, empty the bench, because you're going to have to develop depth. And one of the ways you do that, you blow teams out.
Milan asking what's going on with SMU. They've lost twice to in-state foes there.
All our guys transferred
to
SMU. They graduated. Yeah. That's a large part of it.
They've lost to TCU and Baylor this year. I'm not gonna just forget about them because they don't have an ACC loss. So I think Miami matches up really well with them. I'll be at that game in Dallas.
So will I.
Yeah, so I'll be out there with my dad.
We'll have dinner. I'll take you to Camp Peasy's. I have a friend out there. But SMU, the Baylor game, they blew that game. They had a 2-touchdown lead with about 5 minutes to go. And TCU is one of the best offenses in the country. Sonny Dykes has another really good unit. I actually think their offense is better than the playoff unit they had a few years ago. And Josh Hoover is a quarterback that I really like. They were, I think, leading at the beginning of the fourth quarter of that game. So let's be honest, Pete. It's not like they've gotten blown out 48-0 here.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So I think, listen, you get the little mid-season reset there, and Rhett's a good coach. I think he'll be able to work through some of the issues there. Defensively, I don't know. I don't think they have the guys in the trenches right now.
Well, who do they lose? Jafari Harvey, Justin Harrison Hunt,
Jared Harrison Hunt, who's in the NFL. Elijah Roberts. Right. Elijah Roberts. I mean, Roberts is awesome.
And Brashard Smith had a monster year. Romello Brinson making some plays still. But the next step for SMU is, and I'm sure Rhett's going to address this, they got to get bigger bodies up front defensively that they grow by themselves.
And it's Texas, so you should be able to get some guys in the trenches there. It's not like they lack body types.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I really like the commitment that we got last night that you guys broke down. The reality is, and Danny Money and you talk about it all the time, the most valuable commodity and the scarcest commodity in the transfer portal is big bodies now, right? It's not actually quarterbacks, it's big bodies.
Yeah.
So
it's big bodies and they're expensive, man. So it's like you're either gonna get a guy like this who we call it more of a late bloomer situation as opposed to, hey, this guy, because he was committed to FAU, 6'4", 290, 285, 290 range, Steve. And this is a guy that Florida State wanted badly. Like Miami did their best to fend off Florida State. He was supposed to visit there last weekend, but Miami got him to switch that visit to go see Miami again. And these guys, once they hit the portal, if he were to start his career at an FAU, and then if he were to blossom at an FAU, and then he hits the portal, he's a $1 million close to a type guy. If he's that good, if not, it's still fine. That's still 600,000+ a year sort of player. So if you get them out of high school and grow them here, develop them here, you can manage it a little bit more.
Petey, when you talk about the word project, and I get it, and everyone wants a high-end 5-star. I think Miami's still battling. We don't know how that's going to go with the kids. I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. But the reality is, if you're going to take a project, they better have the physical traits. And look, this program for years took the projects that were, instead of being 6'4", 6'5", 290, we took a lot of 6'2" guys that were 265 with short arms. I get it, but it's a little bit different. You got to have certain physical traits. I was thinking about this last night because I know there was a debate on the CanesInSight recruiting board. Certain people really liked this pickup. Other people really didn't. We'll see who's right in about 3 to 5 years. But if you look at the Mount Rushmore of Miami defensive tackles, and I'm going to do a full article on this one day because I was debating this with some people last weekend in Miami. So the Mount Rushmore of Miami defensive tackles, in my view, is no particular order: Jerome Brown, Russell Maryland, Warren Sapp, and Cortez Kennedy. Now, this is not Ed Reed was a 2-star statement, okay? I want to get that off the bat. I'm not making any projections for Saintius. I'm just giving a fact. Jerome Brown out of, I think, Brooksville was probably a highly rated guy, but I don't remember what the perception was on him. I'd have to look that up. But Russell Maryland was basically a back end of the class guy from Chicago, from Whitney Young High School in Chi-Town. I think it was Hubbard Alexander, our old wide receiver coach, that told Jimmy, hey, this guy's pretty big. Maybe he can lose weight, but he was not considered a 5-star. Cortez Kennedy was a JC guy, big guy. I think he went to JC in Mississippi, originally from Arkansas. Petey, I can tell you this, and I've watched every game. He made the greatest jump of any Hurricane player I've ever seen, from 88, where he's just this big guy who couldn't move, to the 3rd pick in the draft and an NFL Hall of Famer. Never seen a guy make this many strides. It was unbelievable. He was a completely different player. And then Warren Sapp was originally a tight end from Apopka. So that's a position that can go either way, but development is key. And if he's on that Moton arc, who's having a very good year, I think we would take that as the baseline floor every single year.
And I think he might have a bigger frame than Moton too. So I think this is a guy that they love the upward trajectory on. He's really, newer to the game of football, came over from Haiti early in his high school career. And everything you hear about him is an awesome kid, great family. And he's someone who has put on probably about 40, 50 pounds in the last year or so, probably a little bit less than a year. So yeah, I think that that's such a high upside pickup. You're probably, from what I understand, going to have a little bit more shuffling that happens there on the defensive line in terms of recruiting. You're going after some 5-stars there, as you alluded to, James Johnson, Tank Jones as well. I think Tank Jones, Miami's working very hard for that one. Jason Taylor will be in Mobile this weekend to go see him. And look, I think you're going to try to add maybe another edge guy or two here as well. So they're after a number of big time talents there, but this is a nice foundational piece to the class, Steve, for sure.
Yeah, Petey, when I saw Tank Jones at the Licking when I was with you guys on Saturday, wow, that's a guy you're just, sheesh, that's a specimen.
275 pounds. You saw him, Steve, and I talked about it, like how he carries the weight is he's going to be at 300 pounds in no time.
Right. And one of the mantras that Mario Cristobal had that he talked a lot about when he got the job about what he wanted to change at Miami, he kept saying, hey guys, I know what it looks like. And one of the things that he meant was, I know what a facility should look like. I know what a football building should look like. And I know what the players should look like. And I would say for the last 20 years before Mario, or before the Butch Davis players exited the program, so that's 2004 to about 2005 or 6, all the way to the time that we hired Mario, we probably have one or two, maybe three guys in every room that look the part. One thing Mario's going to do is he's going to have us looking great coming off that bus. That's not even a question.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Milan asking about Saintis, do I think he could play offensive tackle? No, I think Mario, and I think they want, these longer. I mean, Saintis is long for a D tackle, but I think they want he'd probably be a little bit taller, and he does play some offensive line from what I understand, but they recruit at such a high level at O-line that, to me, you keep him on the defense side of the ball. You see that aggressive nature, but let me see here. Kyle asking, sorry to cut you off. Kyle asking if Tank Jones is a DT prospect. To me, I see him having inside-outside versatility. Yeah. But again, Steve, don't take it from me, guys. This kid weighed in at 275. He's not going to be dropping weight. I mean, they'll probably maybe like an Armando Blunt, but he's probably he's already pretty close to Blunt size, if not bigger right now.
The thing was, he didn't look overly heavy.
That's what I'm saying. But I heard he literally stepped on the scale this weekend and weighed 275. So this is like as verified as it gets.
I mean, because Brian McKinney was waiting to come on, and so they're both kind of by each other. Like, man, those were absolute units, as they say. But if you look at a guy like Saint, he's going to be a guy that is he going to play in his first, second year? Probably not. But you look at a guy like Moten. Moten really didn't get snaps till about his third, fourth year.
I could see him playing by year 2, Steve. You give him a full year of development. Why not? I mean, I think there's going to be an opportunity there.
That's the thing about blowing teams out. That's the value of blowing teams out. It allows you to get a look. I know not everyone agrees with me. I believe we should play a Bethune-Cookman game every single year. I actually want to see these games because it gives me a chance to look at the development of young players. Howard Schnellenberger used to make sure he scheduled at least 2 or 3 games of that ilk every single season.
Well, this is why it's important too, Steve, and this is the business side of it, right? Like, what starts to happen now in the middle of the year? Renegotiations for NIL deals, the restructuring of what it's going to start looking like next year. I'm not saying deals are getting done right now. It's still very early in the season. But a guy like Gerard Pringle, just from seeing him that game and seeing him then at USF, which he got more reps there at USF because of what he did against Bethune. He's a player. How many more reps he's going to be able to get in big moments this year? Hopefully he does, because I think he should be in the mix with the burst that he brings. But that's a guy that you say, we got something there. We saw it in live game action with him. And now you can kind of gauge it on, hey, there's this kid in high school who is going to cost XYZ amount of money. We have this guy on the roster. We know what this guy on the roster is. What's the cost efficiency for us there?
It's a business. This is now pro football. We have to admit that. But in terms of Pringle, let me go back to the Lamar Miller story. We redshirted Lamar Miller, and my buddy who really knows, he said, Steve, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm not going to play. I said, Steve, if he's a running back and you think he's good, he ain't staying 4 years, Steve. With Lamar Miller, we got 2 years. if Jared Pringle can play any role, even mop-up duty in blowouts where you get him carries and you save the likes of Marty Marr and Mark Fletcher and even Jordan Lyle, I let him be that fourth back. Again, if Pringle is the guy that we think and hope he is, Peter, he's not staying his fourth year.
Yeah, that's what I,
you know.
And he's, he's not going to stay his fourth year, or like because he's that good, or he'll transfer. It's very rare you see the Chase Smith situations where a guy was banged up. He's a legacy kid, character wise, really wanted to be here at Miami and is now contributing and hopefully gets an opportunity now at the next level because he's got the size and the athletic ability. If he stays healthy, can be a guy who makes an impact on specialty. Like, you're going to see less of those stories, unfortunately, Steve. Yeah. But that's why these things are important, because it's a 1-year clock these days, man. Like, I'm not saying you have to be dominating or flashing. Let's not even say dominant. You don't have to be flashing the way Pringle did, scoring touchdowns. But like, if you get an opportunity in a game or maybe you don't even get an opportunity because they don't trust you yet, then the writing is on the wall for some guys, I would say.
Well, to whom much is given, something is expected. And the days of just being a program guy that is okay with being on the scout team for 3 to 4 years and getting certain type of roles by your 4th or 5th year, that NIL changes a lot. It really does. And Coach JB talks about this a lot. Is like back then when it was only scholarships, you could earn your scholarship that way. But if you, like you said, Petey, if you have a price tag attached, and let's say you're one of the high-end recruits, which means you're getting a legitimate 6-figure deal, right then and there, unless it's a multi-year agreement, you're right, Peter, you are on the clock almost immediately. I don't think people think about that enough in this whole dynamic.
No doubt. And Steve, I know you got to get out of here in a few minutes. Any last thoughts on these last 4 games and now looking ahead, man? We can, like I said, it has not been a perfect 4 games, but you have survived and you are a top 5 team.
Look, one thing I'm very happy for Mario Cristobal is that he has a vision. Okay, and I think it has to work with Mario, because if it doesn't work with Cristobal, I think we're all going to lose faith. And I know how much this job means to him. I know the passion. I could just feel it. I want this to work for him as much as any coach, because he's the one guy who looks at Miami as a destination job. There's no other place he'd rather be. So we have to make it work with him. Also, the 2 weeks that we were under pressure to really come out and not lay an egg because of the recruiting dynamic, and you know this, Peter, you cover it much more closely than I do. Notre Dame and Florida, we brought in a lot of recruits, right? We wanted to give them a good look at Miami. We had game day on. We hit home runs. We hit home runs. We can complain about the scores, how close, it doesn't matter. I think recruits are now figuring out nationally Miami is now back to being a serious football program. So I think that has been a great development and storyline. We're only 1/3 of the way through. Also, a couple things as a fan, because I still sit in the regular seats. I like to breathe the fresh air. Love the towels. The next ones need to be green or orange. Just saying. Just a little suggestion box note I'm going to drop. Also, I hate to bring this up. The DJ is so close. He's close to just.
So listen, Steve. We received some info, and I'm waiting for D to get back in town so we could do a full show on it. But we received some info. The DJ, I think we need to lay off him a little bit. I don't know that he's making. I think that he did what he could last weekend to get it closer to what people want it to be. I think we got to be very cognizant of the fact that some decisions are out of the man who's pressing the buttons, unfortunately.
Nothing against him. He's doing a fine job, but little suggestions. Again, we're in Miami, so let's kind of like understand the atmosphere. Wouldn't mind a little Stevie B. That'd be good. Personal favorite, you do this, I'll get off your back. Rock Me Amadeus by Falco. I like the song. It's catchy. Also, DMX. Got to get some DMX in there. The crowd gets hyped. But other than that, I get it, man. I get it. I don't want to be too critical.
Listen, I I think that he's heard the noise, and he's trying to do what he can in his power to make the change. So listen, everyone is getting closer to where it needs to be around this program right now, Steve. It's the team is they're not quite there yet. They're fine tuning. The DJ is getting closer as well. We're all a part of this thing, man. We're all slowly working towards getting this thing where it needs to be, as Mario would say.
Yeah, and fans out there in South Florida, I know it's easy for me to say, but I'm 3,000 miles away. I'm coming in for Louisville. We just made my plans for Dallas. This has been a pet peeve of mine, and I get it. People have other things to do. I've never seen a fan base on Twitter the week of a game say, hey, guys, I can't go to this game, so I have 8 tickets. I'm like, wait a minute. Hey, folks, this is not the Marlins. You don't get 81 games. We get 7 to 8 games a year. You buy season tickets. Is it too much to ask to go to games where it's not Florida State, Florida, or Notre Dame? Just, again, just a small critique. Small critique. That's all. We just show
Steve, listen, as someone who you make the cross-country trip, so you can voice these concerns to the locals.
No, but look, Peter, if I was living in the 305 or the 954, I can honestly tell you, and this is the one thing about someone that tries to cover all of college football. It's part of my job now. You do miss every other game. I get it. And you have to catch up. And sometimes the reception's not good on your cell phone. But my God, we only have 6 to 8 of these a year. I would actually go to every game if I lived out there. But again, easy for me to say. I get it. I'm just a crouching tiger 3,000 miles away. That's it. Just saying.
Steve, let everyone know where they can find your work.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, and I X way too much at Steve Kim 323. I do the 3 knockdown rule with Mario Lopez. Yes, that one. We talk about boxing. I actually mentioned the Miami game and how we needed a retractable roof at Hard Rock at the end of the show this week.
There we go.
I'll be on with Coach Jason Brown, Coach JB show Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll be on there in about 5 minutes. And I'm on Fearless with Jason Whitlock several times a week, and I write a twice weekly boxing column on snack.com, SNAC.com, run by Victor Conte. Yes, that one. Also, what else do I do?
We need Victor Conte to get down here on the bye week and take a look at some of these injuries, Steve.
Yeah, he'll do a good job. Trust me. Also, I am on Instagram at Steve Orale Kim, an O to East LA. So it's Steve ORALEKIM, and it's the picture. My avatar is the one where I'm leaning against the U. And by the way, Peter, you took that picture.
Wow, there you go. The best recall in the business, Steve Kim. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us. And thank you again to Jensen Sunset Corners for making this segment happen. Wear that orange and green.
10% off non-sale items. And again, 8701 72nd Street, Miami, Florida.
All right, Steve. Appreciate your time, man. We'll see you next week. Awesome stuff there. As always, from Canine Kane, Steve Kim, as always, he's on not only here on Thursdays, but the CanesInSight message boards, CanesInSight.com, as Canine Kane, always giving you guys his perspective there in written form. Tomorrow, what am I going to be doing? D-Money, he's in Greece. Whatever, Greece, schmeece. I get to be at Duffy's Tavern, the legendary Duffy's Tavern, as I'm there every Friday, open for business, man. This is where, as you guys see here, where the elite meet to eat there in West Miami, there right outside of the Gables, home of the Hurricanes. Best burgers, wings, cold beer, and stay tuned. We're going to be doing something there, I believe, coming up here for the Florida State game. So Duffy's Tavern, I will be out there tomorrow. And you guys know this is the classic. You guys want to have your Dolphins watch parties there, big groups as well. So corporate events, birthdays, whatever you guys want at Duffy's Tavern, the original. So this is not. Don't worry about those other ones. You got to say Duffy's Tavern when you look it up in the GPS. And one of our other great sponsors here, real quick, want to talk about them. OrchidMan Florida. Landscape artisans here in South Florida. Very passionate about their landscaping. Contact them at 786-271-0332. And guys, they do it all: sprinkler repair, manicured maintenance, irrigation system, tree trimming, rain gutters, tree removal, relocation, tree stump grinding. OrchidManFlorida.com, not Orkin, ORCHID man, OrchidManFlorida.com. And I'm not done for the day. So we just did this show with Steve here. Going to be doing another show this afternoon from Lomelo's Meat Market. They're right past Dayland 9810 South Dixie Highway on US 1. Lomelo's Meat Market, promo code CIS10. Nationwide shipping on Wagyu meat, prime meat, skirt steaks, burgers, Denver, tomahawk, ribeye, New York strip, everything you guys are looking for there at Lomelo's Meat Market. Check out lomelos.com for your nationwide shipping, or in person as well. I'm going to be doing a show live from there this afternoon. We'll talk more about Frederick Saintis and his commitment and what else is to come on the recruiting trail. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everyone for tuning in today. Go Canes.